A simple escape from family drama turned into a nightmare. One night, alone in my secluded cabin, I heard a chilling voice from below. "Who's up there?" My heart froze. What I discovered next will haunt me forever. Don't miss this terrifying true story. I began subletting a rental cabin in early 2023. My dad and I were constantly at odds, and I needed to move out. The actual renter of the cabin was having personal issues and had to leave. For simplicity, I'll refer to him as my landlord. The cabin was an entire unit, rented month to month, which was perfect for my temporary situation. It had 2 floors, a small kitchen, a decent-sized living space, and a bedroom accessible via a small flight of stairs. The bedroom had a quirky hatch door that you had to open to get upstairs. After a month of living there, I had already paid for the second month's rent. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road surrounded by similar cabins. One cabin seemed vacant. I never saw cars or lights there. I didn't meet the other neighbors, but I knew people lived in the nearby houses. I worked 12-hour shifts, and when I got home, I was exhausted and went straight to bed to watch TV until I fell asleep. One night, I made a late-night dinner of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a protein shake. After finishing, I went to bed. I always shut the hatch door every night. Leaving the entrance to my bedroom open made me feel exposed and vulnerable. This hatch door didn't have a lock, but the cabin was meant for one person or a couple, so I didn't worry much. As I was watching TV in bed, I heard it, a voice from below saying, "Who's up there?" My heart stopped for a second as I shot up to an upright position. It sounded like it came from inside the house, but it could have been from outside. I grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. I crawled over to the circular window above the bed and looked outside. It was pitch dark and I couldn't see anyone. I called out, "Who's there?" The deafening silence that followed made me even more uneasy. I got off the bed and cautiously opened the hatch door. "Dad!" I called out, thinking maybe he had come over. No response. I walked downstairs, my heart pounding. I flicked on the first light switch I passed and the living room lit up. There was no one there. I turned on the front outside light and peered through the windows. Still, no one. I was thoroughly confused. I turned off the living room light and climbed back up the stairs, shutting the hatch door. I was wide awake now, so I turned the TV back on. Not even 5 minutes later, I heard pounding on the bedroom door below. The thuds were angry and meant to scare me. If there was any doubt before, this confirmed it. Someone was in the house. I left the TV on and stayed motionless, too scared to move. Whoever was down there could easily open the door since it didn't have a lock. After about 20 minutes, I felt comfortable enough to move. I looked for my phone, but it wasn't on my nightstand. It must be downstairs. I opened the hatch door and looked down the stairs. The flickering TV light provided minimal visibility. I crept down the stairs and, instead of turning on any lights, ran out the back door barefoot. I sprinted to the nearest neighbor's house with their lights on and knocked furiously. Someone looked at me through the window next to the door, just staring. I yelled, explaining what happened and that I needed a phone to call the police. The person continued to watch me silently, unsettling me. I started backing away, realizing they weren't going to help. What if they were involved? I went back to my rental, entering through the back door. I locked it and turned on every light in the tiny house, searching for my intruder and my phone. I finally found my phone in my car's center console. I must have left it there when I was tired earlier. I went back inside, the TV still on in the bedroom. Climbing the stairs, I reached the top and saw someone sitting on my bed, staring at the TV. It was a man. I screamed, and he slowly turned his head to look at me. Before I could see anything else, I bolted down the stairs and outside, finally calling 911 from my phone. I sat in my locked car, watching the house while on the line with the operator. I saw someone walking past the backyard into the woods. When the police arrived, one officer checked the house and upstairs. After I told him someone had likely walked into the woods, he asked if I had anywhere else to stay that night. I swallowed my pride and went back to my dad's house after packing some important belongings. I returned to the cabin the next day, stayed another night, and then collected the rest of my things. Fortunately, the landlord agreed to refund some of my money. When he asked what the man looked like and I couldn't provide details, he didn't ask any more questions, which seemed suspicious to me. Something was off about the whole situation, from the creepy neighbor ignoring me to the landlord's sudden urgent need to move out to the intruder breaking in. Maybe it's all connected, or maybe I'm overthinking it. It was a Tuesday night around 11 p.m. in 2013, and I was walking down a dimly lit street on my way home from work. My car was in the shop, so I had to walk 3 miles home every day. The walk took about an hour, and I was always home before midnight. I lived in a small town in southern Indiana, where after 10 p.m., the roads were usually empty. The only vehicles you'd see were truckers heading to Indianapolis. About a mile into my walk, I turned onto a dirt road. My house was off the beaten path, so I had to take these dirt roads surrounded by forest to get there. As I was turning, I heard the sound of a motor in the distance, getting closer very slowly. I saw a van moving down the road I had just turned off of, its lights off. At first, this didn't seem out of place because the local used car dealership often sold vehicles with broken parts, like headlights. I assumed this van belonged to one of their clients. I kept walking down the side road with the van moving slowly on the main road. Suddenly, the van's engine roared and it sped up, its lights now on. Startled but not yet worried, I kept walking. When the van got closer to the turn for the side road, about 500 feet away, it turned its lights off again and slowed down. Now, I was officially creeped out. Trying not to show my fear, I walked faster, constantly looking back to see if I was being followed. My worst fears were confirmed when the van turned onto the dirt road. It was only about 500 feet behind me. I started to walk much faster. Despite my fear, I looked back and saw the van stopped with both the passenger and driver's doors open. Every bone in my body filled with dread. I ran for my life down the dirt road, hearing what I was sure was a gunshot not far behind. I really thought I was going to die. I made a quick turn into the surrounding forest and hid behind a big rock. I heard a middle-aged man not far away say, "I think she went into the woods." To my horror, I also heard what sounded like 3 young girls, one of them responding, "Okay, sir, I'll see if we can find her." Now I wasn't just fearing for my life, I was terrified I'd be forced into whatever sick group this was. Covering my mouth, trying not to make a sound, I heard the man say, "Whoever finds her doesn't have to drink the blood tonight." A million thoughts ran through my head. Is this some sort of satanic cult? Are these girls kidnapped? Will I become one of them? I spent what felt like an eternity behind the rock, scared of every sound. Then, to my immense relief, I heard sirens nearby. I stayed hidden for safety. When I finally felt brave enough to look from behind the rock, I saw red and blue lights right outside the forest. I ran out, screaming for help. The cops came to me and asked, "Ma'am, do you know about this body?" Confused, I replied, "What body?" Then I saw it. The most gruesome sight I will ever witness. A young woman, naked and gutted with blood everywhere, lay in front of the cop car. The van was nowhere in sight. I explained everything to the cops. The car, the man, the girls who had to drink the blood. The cops said they'd look into it and were kind enough to drive me home. That night I couldn't sleep. I looked out my window and saw the van, the same one, driving slowly down my street without its lights on. This time I was smart and wrote down the license plate number. I called the cops immediately. When they arrived, the van was long gone, but what they told me still horrifies me to this day. The cops said, "We checked the license plate number. It's registered in South Dakota. But the thing is, we checked with other precincts around the country, and there have been reports tonight of a suspicious van with that same license plate in Vermont, Nevada, Alaska, and Texas. They said they'd call me if they got any more information. The cops left, and I never got a call. I don't really believe in the paranormal, so my best guess is that it was some sort of cult using fake license plates to carry out their sick deeds across the country. But I guess I'll never know. I moved out of Indiana, and now whenever I see something suspicious, I bolt. My wife Giana and I live in a typical suburb with typical jobs and typical lives. Our neighbors are normal, our lifestyle is standard, the American dream our parents taught us to strive for. I'm not much of a writer. The last time I wrote anything this long was in college. But something happened not long ago that no one can explain, and it still scares us to this day. It was a normal day. After work, Giana and I decided to go out to eat. We got back around 9 p.m., brushed our teeth, and got ready for bed by 9:30. By 10 home, we were in bed watching our show. Then the phone rang. Giana told me not to answer it, reasoning that any call at this hour couldn't be good news. I agreed, but thought it might be an emergency, so I reached for the phone next to the bed. But it stopped ringing before I could pick it up. Our old landline was trash. The caller ID would disappear the second the call stopped, and there was no way to check call history. Oh well, I thought. Wrong number. But a few minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, the caller ID displayed unknown number. Giana and I both found it unusual. Calls past 10 p.m. were generally unacceptable. I didn't pick up, but when it stopped ringing, it rang again immediately. It felt urgent, like something terrible had happened to a relative. I answered in a hurry. On the other end, it was my neighbor Al. He asked if I knew the man standing in front of my house. "What are you talking about?" I replied. He told me to go outside and abruptly hung up. His abruptness was bizarre. Giana's face showed fear when I told her what Al said. She urged me not to go outside. I reassured her, saying I would just look out the window. I went downstairs and moved the curtain slightly to peek outside. There was no one on the lawn. I opened the front door and the storm door, stepping out onto the front stoop. I looked around and checked the bushes. Nothing. I felt annoyed, thinking Al was pranking us. It was out of character for him to do that. I went back to bed and told Giana no one was out there, assuming Al was messing with us. She was as confused as I was. It felt bizarre. She told me to call him, so I did. It rang but went straight to voicemail. I left a message saying, "Hey Al, what was that call about? Give me a call back." Then the phone rang again. Unknown caller. I picked up and it was Al again saying, "Go outside. There's someone standing outside your house." His voice was calm and slow. Then he hung up. I got up, exasperated. "All right, what the hell's going on?" I told Giana to wait and went downstairs again. I looked through the curtain and this time saw someone standing at the end of our walkway, where it met the sidewalk. He had a hood over his head, shrouding his face in darkness. I was shaken. I opened the door and called out, "Can I help you?" The man just stood there. I threatened to call the police. Then the house phone rang again. I closed the front door and went to the kitchen phone. This time, the caller ID showed Al's number. I picked up and Al said in a much more normal voice, "Hey, I just got your voicemail. What was that about? I didn't call you." I was so confused. I swore to him he had called me twice, telling me about a man outside my house. He sounded even more confused than I was. Moments later, he said he didn't see anyone outside my house. I went back to look out the window and the man was gone. I demanded Al tell me if this was a joke, warning that we'd have a problem if it was. Al insisted he was telling the truth. He's not an immature prankster. He's a low-key, respectful guy. I had to put him on speaker so Giana could vouch for me that we did get 2 calls from someone sounding just like him.